Senate Committee on Natural Resource, Environment, and Great Lakes come to order. If the clerk please call the roll.
Senator Casperson,
Here.
Senator Pavlov, Senator Green, Senator Kowal, Senator Meekhoff, Senator Warren, Senator Hood. Mr. Chair, you have 2 members present. We do not have a quorum at this time.
Thank you. Would you please all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, we're going to wait on some of the business till we get other members here. Today we're going to be having a video conference, and we've got some folks from Davidic Community College in the Ironwood area, and they're here to testify on um, Senate Bill 1350. And so we're going to start going with the testimony because we are somewhat limited with time here. And so with that, I think we've got some names here. If it's okay, you guys, the folks over in Ironwood, you can hear me okay? Everything's good over on your end? Okay, I've been given a list here, so I'm going to take from the names here and get started. So the first name I was given was Scott Erickson, Ironwood City Manager. You want to go first? Thank you, Scott. Scott, I have a question. when you talk about the contacts and stuff, is all that information, or is somebody on your end of it documenting that, so we have that documentation? And I ask that, having had meetings now with some other folks that are concerned about the wolf hunt. In fairness, we haven't produced. We have the stories, I guess, if you will, and I've been involved in it too, where I've gone out and talked to farmers and ag people. But is somebody documenting this so we can put it together and kind of show what's been happening?
We'll have to do a better job of that. I don't know if there's been considered effort to document. I think through a public safety department, they get contacts. Recreation level be documented. I've had personal calls. I haven't documented myself personally, but it's probably something that, maybe there is someone in the area doing that. But we could probably help relay some of the contacts we have to that individual if there is.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Next up, I'm going to ask Judge Anders. Kingstead, are you there? Okay. Okay.
Established in 1998, has 250 plus members. My testimony is the Board of Directors has previously passed two resolutions in support of wolf control policy, practices, and procedures. The first, May 3rd, 2005, and the second, June 7th, 2011. Both resolutions end with the statement that once the wolves have been delisted, the Michigan Department of Natural Resources should be given management authority over the wolf population as soon as feasibly possible. Since the initial recovery goal of, it says 200 wolves, but it's relatively was met over a decade ago, the current estimated population of 700 animals, with most living in west and central sections of the Upper Peninsula, the Onondaga Valley Sports Club, hereby endorses Senate Bill 350, House Bill 5834, designating the wolf as a game animal and authorizing the Department of Natural Resources to the Natural Resources Commission to establish hunting and trapping seasons. Thank you on behalf of the club.
Do you have any other comment on behalf of yourself?
Yeah, I didn't want to talk all at once, but I support both bills. I'm kind of familiar with it. I simply want to say this. The Department of Natural Resources, what you don't usually hear from the Upper Peninsula, has done pretty well in my lifetime. The restoration of elk, going back, starting in 1919 and then picking up, something went wrong with that, they reintroduced them. And we have a wonderful elk herd and enjoy a very limited elk season, which I have never been able to get a tag for, but that's not the point. The second of which is the turkeys that were put in Menominee County. I'm not sure that turkeys are a blessing, but the turkeys have certainly thrived and survived the Department of Natural Resources. The moose, we just had a moose go through Bessemer about a month ago. The ones that are making it. They haven't increased to the level that they thought they could have a hunting season, and we continue to enjoy seeing them periodically throughout the area. I think that the hunting season, the authority to have one, is very important. I think it should be given to the Department of Natural Resources, and that we go forward from there. I think that a lot of the opposition to this is opposition to hunting close is arguing about wolves and what's proper for wolves. We manage wolves, we've got to manage wolves with people. And that's the point. People trying to make a living, people trying to enjoy the outdoors, people trying to have pets. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Any questions? Seeing none, Okay, the next up, I'm gonna go right through the folks there. Nancy Warren, is Nancy there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Nancy.
Thank you. Um, Thank you for the opportunity to comment. My name is Nancy Warren. I'm the Great Lakes Regional Director for the National Wolf Watcher Coalition. We're an all-volunteer, nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting positive attitudes about wolves through education. And we oppose Senate Bill 1350. Senate Bill 1350 states that the use of hunting as a management tool is necessary to minimize human and gray wolf encounters and to prevent gray wolves from threatening or harming humans, livestock, and pets. This is very misleading. Senator Casperson and some even providing testimony today would like you to believe that wolves are rampantly killing livestock and pets while owners are forced to stand by helplessly, and we urge you to look at the facts. I'm a resident of the Western UP. My home is located nearly equidistant between two farms, in prime wolf habitat surrounded by the Ottawa. Wolves and other predators often use our property, and we take reasonable precautions to keep our pets safe by ensuring they're always under our control. In 2001, the producer to my east had a depredation of a cow. Shortly thereafter, he obtained 2 guard dogs. He maintains his fencing and keeps his calves in a barnyard. Although he still sees and hears wolves, he has no other depredations. The producer to my west has a long history of depredation problems from a variety of predators, including bears, coyotes, bobcat, and more recently wolves. In 2010, 53%, 2011, 43% of all the wolf depredations in the UP were on this farm. Simply hunting wolves in the UP will not resolve this producer's predation problem. Livestock producers are compensated for verified losses. They are allowed to kill wolves in the act of attacking their livestock or dogs without a permit. They can be issued landowner permits to kill problem wolves. There's a federal grant that placed 20 donkeys on farms, and fencing has been purchased for 7 farms. These and other non-lethal measures have proven to be effective in reducing depredations. Killing livestock is a learned behavior, and most wolf packs do not cause depredation problems. Only 7% of the 900 working farms have experienced a verified depredation. The best way to manage problem wolves when non-lethal measures fail is to ensure producers follow best management practices and to target the wolves responsible for depredation. Randomly killing wolves not responsible for depredation can actually cause depredations to increase. Over the past 17 years, 68 dogs have been killed. Nearly all were hounds pursuing game on public land. Since federal delisting only 9 months ago, 25 wolves have been legally killed under DNR's current authority, including 8 wolves killed this spring in Ironwood. The wolves were attracted to a residential area by persons feeding deer, and the wolves were killed as a proactive measure. No one was threatened by these wolves. There are some who argue recreational wolf hunting will increase social acceptance. Just look at the states where hunting and trapping of wolves is allowed, and you'll see the hatred for the wolf is just as strong as ever, with slogans such as smoke a pack a day and kill 'em all abound. In Michigan alone, 62 wolves have been illegally killed since 1999. No doubt you've heard from constituents frustrated with wolves. Some have real concerns. Others are misinformed on the impact of wolves on deer. Others are unaware of the ecological benefits of wolves. Attitude surveys show majority of UP residents support wolf recovery. Senator Casperson has attempted to justify the need for designated taking the wolf as a game animal, stating wolf numbers have far exceeded population goals. We've already heard that today. He's mistaken. The approved wolf management plan does not identify a target population size, nor does it establish an upper limit for the number of wolves in the state. The fact that Wisconsin and Minnesota have established wolf hunting and trapping is not a scientific reason for Michigan to institute one. And we also question why Senate Bill 1350 assesses a penalty of only $200 to $1,000 for illegally killing a wolf, and believe the penalty should be elevated to that of illegally taking an elk or a moose. With all the non-lethal and lethal measures available to target and control problem wolves, there is no scientific evidence to support the need for a recreational wolf hunting and trapping season, or designating the wolf a game animal. And we ask you to consider our input and the input of our 1,470 supporters who have sent emails to you urging you to reject Senate Bill 1350. And just one final comment here, since funding was raised as an issue here, in a public attitude survey, there was public support for coming up with alternate funding sources such as a license plate, an endangered species license plate or a wolf license plate. People are willing to spend money for that. People are also willing to have an increased source of funding through Pittman Robinson, through, say, the sale of binoculars, snowshoes, canoes, other outdoor recreation. They're willing to pay the tax to support wolf education and wolf monitoring. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Nancy, I got a question. If we're kind of trying to balance or juggle this thing, when you mentioned the money side of it, how would you answer the sportsmen who pay through their hunting and fishing license for the department to manage animals, especially game animals? That's the key. If in fact the wolves in certain pockets, isolated area, which I believe is happening, but if it is, how do we balance that one with the sportsmen who are paying today for the DNR to manage deer herds?
Not just sportsmen that are funding Pittman Robinson. I own a gun. We own several guns. We paid that excise tax on our guns and our ammunition, and my husband has hunted deer. But when we did the research on this and asked the question about hunters buying licenses for hunting wolves, very few said they would even purchase a license. So, so I'm not convinced that just having, sure, you're going to get the $4 per tag. If people, and in Wisconsin, 20,000 people applied for a tag, just the opportunity to go in the lottery. So it did bring revenue. But if you're talking such a limited hunt, as you just said, might only be, I'm not so sure that there is a balance there, especially when there are alternate funding sources. Like I say, a license plate, I know I'd be willing to purchase it for my 3 vehicles, and I'm not a deer hunter.
Yeah, you might have misunderstood me. What I was driving at, Nancy, is the idea of the wolf or the deer hunt itself. When the deer populations start dropping, if that's what's happening, and we get evidence to prove that in regions where hunters traditionally have had a good hunt, a lot of deer, successful hunts, and they see that starting to decline, that's what that's what I'm talking about, the balance. How do we get to that point?
Well, I question whether or not the deer numbers are declining. I just heard Scott say, speak from both sides of his mouth, we have a problem with deer coming into town. We have an overpopulation of deer in the city limits, and we are using hunters, but they're obviously not reducing the population there. We have 270,000 deer across the entire UP and 700 wolves. So I have not seen any evidence that deer populations are declining because of the wolves. They do alter deer behavior, and I think that's where education comes from.
Okay, the reason I asked that question is because what you just said, the way you just stated it, is it possible, and I used the Pigeon River as an example when the department suggested that the horse riders were pushing the elk out of the Pigeon River, and that was one of the reasons they were concerned about the horses in the Pigeon. Is it possible that, listening to Scott's testimony, that because we may have a large herd or a pack of wolves in that area, there might be quite a few wolves in the area, is it possible that the wolves are somewhat responsible for pushing the deer herd into the communities? Because
I'm not so sure they're pushing. I think what's bringing the deer into the communities is the feeding of deer, the recreational feeding of deer. Almost every time I have gotten a call from people saying they are seeing wolves in their field, wolves in town. I lived in the city of limits of Ironwood. It was nothing for me to see 5 and 6 deer in my yard in the city limits. And I wasn't feeding deer, but my neighbors were. What we need are township ordinances to ban the feeding of deer, and then that would stop bringing deer into town.
Thank you,
I think we have a bigger issue here than just the wolves.
Thank you, Nancy. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to start taking some testimony here, but it's my understanding there might be a couple left in the UP yet that would like to weigh in on this, but for now, I'm going to take a few people here in the committee room. And I've got Dawn with MUCC, wishes to speak and supports. Good morning, Dawn. Dawn, I can't read your last name. Levy, that's what I thought. Okay. Push the red button in front of you.
Right there.
There you
Good morning. I'm Dawn Levy, president of Michigan United Conservation Clubs and the author of the resolution that was passed at our convention regarding the establishing of a season for trapping and/or hunting the gray wolf in Michigan. As a member of Michigan Bow Hunters, I was known as the Wolf Lady because I conducted numerous seminars educating the public in the wolf and the social behavior of the animal. Over the years, I've spent time studying the wolf from both the biological perspective and the social implications of the wolf on the landscape. I have traveled to Yellowstone National Park in Wisconsin and was a member of the Wolf Alliance for many years to study the wolf. I think the wolf is part of our heritage and it is a magnificent animal on the landscape. However, I also believe that we have reached the targeted population and it is time to manage the wolf utilizing sound biological science to do such. And it is time to designate the wolf as a game species.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay, next I've got Jimmy Mitchell, Chippewa Ottawa Resource Authority, wishes to speak and opposes the bill. Good morning, Jimmy.
Morning. Mr. Chairman, Jimmy Mitchell, I'm also, it's actually on. I'm the Director of Natural Resources as well for the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. I know that we've had several ongoing discussions related to the science of wolf management, and I think one of the things that we haven't had from the tribal perspective is to be able to look at that data that has been purported as having wolf populations established or met their target goals, and trying to understand whether or not we're managing for the biological carrying capacity of the areas, if we're looking at the social carrying capacities. These are some of the things that we really would like the ability to have this information. Spoke with Pat Letterly this morning of the DNR, and he's a little bit better understanding of what information we're looking to get, and so hopefully we're going to be able to get that information from us pretty soon, go back, give it a peer review, try to get a better understanding of whether or not the current mechanism that's in place for the DNR to manage the wolf problem, whether that is sufficient, whether it needs to be enhanced, or whether or not a wolf season as an overlay to the top of that is going to actually create a solution to appease the concerns that people are experiencing, or again, maybe asserting to be experiencing. Because I think when we look at a population like this and we understand what happens when we start culling animals out of a pack type species, where we can actually sort of create a sort of a survival mode mentality within those pack dynamics, and again, as other people have purported, maybe actually have an adverse effect instead of a positive effect. So those are the types of things from the tribal perspective we'd really like to see that information, be able to look at it, to be able to help sort of model that move forward and whatever it needs to be, because currently right now I think we're all guessing. We're really guessing because we don't have that information. And speaking with the folks within the legislature, I know that everybody has been saying, well, we think it's met. Well, I think we should know if it's met, and I think we should have those population estimates understood well enough to know what type of hunt, if there was a hunt, could that current population withstand. We don't know those things, and so even just to go as far as to classify wolf as a game species in itself is sort of I don't know if that's the most responsible thing to do at this point. And I know that the tribes also have the co-management ability within the consent decree to look at this information, to participate in developing management structures in and around it, but also has the other side of it as well as the responsibility to make sure that wise stewardship practices are being implemented. And we really would rather try to get all those answers satisfied first, as opposed to coming in and trying to slow things down in other venues that I don't think anybody's going to wish to be involved in. So that's what we're really trying to hope to accomplish here today by being here, providing this testimony, is to try to look at this in more of a collaborative fashion, and maybe even try to use it as a model and work forward in other issues that come forward on environmental and natural resources issues. And I think having more people involved in situations like this, providing their input, having that ability to participate, and then creating those collaborative governance tenets that create more of a positive motion forward, as opposed to the entrenched mindsets where we're battling each other. That we know that model doesn't work real well, and it slows things down and gets everybody to the point where, and you come to a point where nothing gets done. And so, again, I think by having a more robust approach to this problem that is very passionate, it's very controversial from both sides. If we could work on it, slow things down a little bit, get a better understanding of where we're at and where we need to go, that's what we really support. And so with that, I say thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Jimmy, I don't have a question, just a comment. I want to thank you. I know this is a passionate issue for you and your members, but I want to thank you for your leadership. We might not agree philosophically on the total direction, but you have really handled this well in trying to get your point across. Thank you for the meetings. Thank you for taking the time to come and meet with me. And I do hope that we can come to a consensus where we do agree on things. Okay. I've got Doug Doherty with Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, wishes to speak and supports. Good morning, Doug.
As an organization, the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, with a national membership exceeding 184,000 members, with 4,100 members alone here in Michigan, and having a chapter base of 500 plus chapters nationally, 16 here in Michigan alone. Our members are conservationists and hunters that support proper scientific management of all wildlife species. The foundation is in full support of giving control of the management of our wolf population to the Michigan DNR. They are the best suited. They have the professionals on staff and manage all wildlife within the state. Adding wolves as a game species under the well-established North American model of wildlife conservation is the best tool for managing our wolf population. RMF supports the base scientific management of wolves. We support this bill in making the wolf a game animal. RMF supports the use of hunting, trapping, and similar tools to manage wolf populations. We appreciate your time here today, and we hope you consider this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Being none, thank you. Okay, I'm going to take care of some business real quick. Well, we've got everybody here. I need a motion to adopt the minutes from the October 17th, 2012. Senator Meekoff. Seeing no objections, the minutes are adopted. And I'll need a motion to excuse absent members. We have one with car trouble that might not make it, so I can have a motion for that. Senator Meekoff, seeing no objections, the members will be excused. Okay, now up back to Gogebic, Ironwood area. It's my understanding, I don't have any names in front of me, but I was told there may be a couple other people that would like to speak. Maybe Kirk, if you could help me. Somebody go ahead up there and identify yourself and where you stand on the bill, please.
Yes, we'll zoom in here for you. Where are you?
Okay, I appreciate coming before you, Chairman. My name is Dennis Ellis, and I am from Ironwood, Michigan. I am 65 years old, and I have studied, watched, hunted, and harvested whitetails for over 52 years. The subject of the wolves is the #1 topic with citizen sportsmen in the western Upper Peninsula. I represent hundreds and hundreds of sportsmen. First, for the record, I am not against wolves. I am against the number of wolves that have been left to roam the western Upper Peninsula. I quote, and on January 11th, 1993, 19 years ago, Jim Hamill, DNR biologist from Crystal Falls,
He thinks wolves may prosper someday in the UP. He says, and I quote, "Wolves pose little threat to game and farm animals. If the population reaches 60, that's 60, and it creates problems for farmers like Mr. Koski in front of me, we will deal with it." 687 wolves were estimated last year in the Upper Peninsula. Off the web, September 16, 2012, Idaho, 375, Wyoming, 166, Montana, 170. These are all harvest numbers from legalized hunting, and the population with that number taken grew in Montana. Each of these states sees a need to aggressively manage the wolf. Michigan also. The 2007 DNR handbook, and I quote, "Deer population UP estimate 350,000. The 2011 handbook, 270,000. That's a drop of 70,000 deer in the Upper Peninsula alone. I estimate our deer in the western UP are down 60 to 70% and will bottom out in the next few years. And if we have a hard winter, which we have not had in 10 years, it will be sooner. We have a unique ecosystem here in the western UP where deep snows cause a major problem for our deer. They bunch up, the wolves follow them, and they slaughter them at will. The deer cannot escape in the deep snow in the western end of the Upper Peninsula. 8 wolves were killed by the federal wolf control officer, as Mr. Erickson from the city of Ironwood said, in the city of Ironwood, which we are sitting right now in the college, and within a 3-mile radius in the last 2 years. And I know where they were shot. They were shot close to my home. I urge you to support Senate Bill 1350 and also House Representative Bill 5834 to help us manage the wolves. In summation, we are experiencing the poorest hunting and harvesting in the Upper Peninsula since the late 60s. Help us restore this family and friends tradition in the Upper Peninsula and also its income source. Allow the DNR and us, the citizens of the Western UP, to rebuild this resource. How can you expect young people and kids to come back to this tradition when the experience is so poor? It is time for the state of Michigan to stop spending money on the wolves and start making money on the wolves. The wolves are now in the Lower Peninsula, and the wolves will expand to great numbers as they have in the UP. They will, and I guarantee this, ravage your prized elk herd. They love elk calves. Just ask Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming. One final thought. Each year, fewer and fewer people are coming to the Upper Peninsula from out of state. On our particular lake, there are 11 hunters that bought out-of-state licenses over the last 5 years for $138 each that will never come back to the state of Michigan as long as this perennial problem continues. That's $1,518. 3 of them are my sons. Okay, as the last one, Russ Mason, the Michigan DNR Wildlife Division said, and I quote, July 20th, 2011, Michigan has an acclaimed wolf management plan that will provide strategic guidance once the wolf is delisted. The wolf is delisted. Further, the DNR will not assume the additional workload, although our staff will continue to respond to the highest priority deprivation issues, as are on Mr. Koski's farm. We recognize, and I state this once more, we recognize that these steps will inconvenience some members of the public, especially in the western Upper Peninsula. But the DNR is unwilling to devote additional scarce resources to wolf conflicts until they're delisted. I need not say much more. I believe those facts stand for themselves, and I appreciate the time to bring these before the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Okay, I'm going to come back to the committee here first, and I've got some more names for up north now, so I'll get back to you in a minute. Next, I've got Jill Fritz, the Humane Society of the United States, wishes to speak and opposes the bill. Good morning, Jill.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. The gray wolf is still recovering. That's a fact. It occupies only 5% of its historic range. Further, the Michigan legislature in 2008 passed Public Acts 290 and 318 to allow lethal actions when non-lethal measures are ineffective. Farmers are compensated for verified losses caused by wolves, and there's a grant, as Nancy mentioned, for non-lethal deterrence measures to reduce depredations. I want to point out again what the Wolf Management Roundtable recommended with regard to a possible wolf hunt. They said that reducing wolf abundance at large geographic scales would not necessarily reduce negative interactions and could unacceptably restrict positive interactions desired by the public. They said that most wolf-related conflicts are best handled on a case-by-case basis, and they don't recommend managing individual conflicts by reducing wolf numbers at a broad geographic scale. And if I can just quote from the Wolf Management Roundtable's own report, previous management experience suggests that most wolf-related conflicts are best handled on a case-by-case basis, and managing individual conflicts by reducing wolf numbers at a broad geographic scale would be inappropriate. Further, they said whether management would effectively reduce wolf numbers in local areas of Michigan, especially over the long term, has not yet been proven. And they said the potential efficacy of generally reducing wolf numbers to manage conflicts remains unclear. So we're hearing that they are reporting more conflicts, but the Wolf Management Roundtable has said that reducing wolf numbers may not necessarily reduce those conflicts. The wolf management plan that is in place now says a hunt plan may be developed if it is biologically defensible, legally feasible, and supported by the public. They issued those stipulations in the wolf management plan. But our question is it any of those things? Is it biologically defensible? Is it legally feasible? And is it supported by the public? Well, MSU did a study in 2010 and found that most residents, including hunters, highly value wolves and are not interested in hunting them and support the role of science in making decisions. And I want to stress that science and true studies and true numbers. I'm here to speak for the members, our members of the Humane Society of the United States and the people who care about wildlife and all animals in our state, and I want to make sure their voices are heard. The wildlife of Michigan belongs to all of its citizens. We're asking you to let the DNR's management plan work. It's been less than a year that these wolves have been delisted, and I ask that you're guided by sound science and citizen values, not emotion or hearsay, when considering wolf management policy in our state. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick question, unless somebody has one, I'll defer to them quickly. Okay, no questions? Just a quick question, I just got this morning. This was in the Michigan Lansing Journal, and I read through it, and they gave the numbers, and they go back, and it fits, because I live in the UP, and I worked in the woods my whole life, and back in the 70s, it says here in 1973, they estimated 6 wolves in the UP.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 1970, which fits, because nobody ever saw a wolf in the UP. And now they estimate there's roughly 700 in the UP.
Mm-hmm.
So in 40 years, we went from 6 to 700. And the other problem that I see right now, and I'm curious what you think, but that 700 isn't across the entire UP. That 700 seems to be based on testimony you heard, things we're hearing from sportsmen, the farmers I visited, that they're in pockets, they're in isolated areas. So with that kind of an increase from 73 to today, where are we going with the wolf?
Well, that's, the population recovered because the wolves were protected. And it's wonderful to see that they have recovered. But you mentioned the other problem that you see. Is it a problem? Is it a problem that the wolves have recovered? And we have that population now, 687 or so wolves up there. As far as the depredation, that's why the legislature went to the trouble to pass those public acts and allow for farmers and for hunters to protect their animals by using lethal solutions if they need to. So those measures are already in place, but I don't necessarily agree that it is a problem that the wolves have recovered, and we're seeing so many of them now, but they are still recovering, and we need to continue to protect them. and protect farmers and hunters with the management plan that's in place now.
Senator Green?
In your opinion, how many's enough?
I don't know. I honestly do not know, Senator, how many is enough, because, I mean, the management plan has not set a scientifically based population limit for wolves.
And what
But
would,
like, as I said, sir, the management plan is there to protect those who are concerned about depredations.
okay, so you want to protect the wolf,
Mhm.
right? But you're also, because you represent all animals, you'd also like to protect the moose and the elk and the deer. So at what levels would you like to see each one of them?
Well, as Nancy Warren had stated earlier in her testimony, I don't necessarily see that there is any scientific proof that the wolves are having an adverse impact on those other animals. I mean, that's what they do. They eat other animals. But is there scientific proof right now that this growing wolf population is having an adverse impact on those other species? I'm just saying, I'm sorry, answering with a question because I do not know.
Yeah, the only thing I know, and I can tell, is all the people where I live in my area used to go to the UP to hunt deer. They don't go anymore because they hunt for days and days and days and never see a deer. So are we going to find a solution to that in the study?
We'll have to see it. That is my hope, is that we will see, some definitive studies and scientific research on this before we move forward with starting to shoot wolves so soon after delisting.
Okay, so that's what you'd like.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question? Just one quick one. It just came out of what I listened with that. When we talked about the science of the study, what evidence, you opposed the bill, so what evidence do you have that there's not enough wolves?
I'm sorry, sir.
What scientific evidence do you have that would suggest we don't have enough wolves? In other words, we don't want to hunt the wolves. So what evidence do you have to show us that there's not enough wolves in the UP? And I ask that question because there is evidence. We have evidence. We didn't document it, and that's why I asked earlier, because we do have evidence. In fact, I've got pictures after pictures up here, and I have personally gone to farms and saw the evidence. So I know the evidence is there, and I'm a hunter. I've seen that evidence too. Can I pinpoint it exactly that it's exactly the wolf? No, but there is a common denominator. We're seeing more and more wolves like we've never seen before, and we have less deer. And we know that wolves go after deer for food. And in some cases, it almost, looking at the pictures, it almost seems for sport, because they're not really eating a deer. They drop the deer or the cow and they eat a little portion of it and leave, and they don't even come back to that one. So what evidence do you think you have that would identify the fact that we don't have enough, that we shouldn't hunt it because we're not there yet?
Well, it's just hard to say. It's just so soon after delisting, and I think we just need to do more studies on the population level and the level of social acceptance in the UP. But I'm sorry, I don't really have an answer to that question.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have somebody ready to go in the Upper Peninsula? I've got, I did give a name. How about Dan Parati? Did I say that right?
Good enough.
Go ahead, Dan. It shows here that you support.
Thank you, sir, for this opportunity. Really quickly, my name is Dan Parodi. I worked on the initial wolf recovery program from 88 to 93. I know what these guys are talking about. I'll refer to Mr. Ellis once or twice in my brief explanation here. Dennis is exactly right about the 60 wolves. I was there the day it was said. I worked under the auspices of Jim Hamill. He was a very good wildlife biologist. We agreed differently, like Yogi Berra used to say, on a couple subjects. I wanted the wolves back so I could hunt them. Boy, I got them. That delisting went from 60 to 75 to 120 to 400. I can't remember. I lost count. We have more than enough now. We have it to the point. I was just listening to you. I have your evidence. They don't even. They're very healthy. They don't even act like wolves anymore.
The 8 wolves that Mr. Erickson referred to were right between Denny and my house. I almost knew them by name. They were looking at my neighbor kids. They had to be taken out. They were deemed city wolves. They lived in roughly 12.5 square miles. I know from my data I've collected in the 6.5 years I worked for Wildlife Division at the DNR, that a pack that big usually has a normal timber wolf range, a normal gray wolf range. 10 wolves should live in 100 to 140 square miles. That's an average. These lived in 12.5 square miles for 4.5 years. I knew that. They're not there no more. They were a detriment to the name of a wolf. We have too many. They're not acting right. We need your law. If you want me to talk a little more, our wolves are on the state line. They don't really have a voter registration card. They can come back and have a date on either side of the river. The population will do just fine with the season. We brought them back, like it or not, for that purpose. Rainbows, fisher, marten, elk, moose, wolves. They're no different. They have to be controlled. I don't want them extinct. I want a season and a smaller population. The UP is big. The western UP is smaller. The number of wolves in the western UP far exceeds what we need for the whole state. You need a well-written law.
Thank you, Dan. Are there any questions for Dan? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next, I've got John Koski. John, you ready to go up there? And let's hear that you support.
Yes. Yes, I'm a farmer, and that our family has 2 farms. One they started, not our family, but they started in 1880 with sheep. And the other farm, our family's had it for over 110 years, and there's been cattle on there for over 110 years. We've never lost any cattle to wolves until 1993. And a good friend and neighbor of ours was the last one in Michigan to collect bounty when they had a bounty on wolves. It was Mike Perpich. And what can I say, that even our farm is bigger than a province of Monaco, if you know what that is, and that, so I won't go on. And everybody tells me I'm just a stupid farmer and that. Okay, then I ask these people, if they're so smart, how many countries there are on planet Earth? They can't tell me. I ask them, what is concentricity? They don't know. How do I know a lot of these things? Because my background is, when I got out of high school, there was an aerospace contractor. He was hard up for people to work. So because of my farm background, I went and worked in the aerospace industry. For a lot of the projects I worked for were General Electric and Pratt & Whitney that went out of Cape Canaveral. So I'm not as stupid as these people tell me I am. And even last year when federal agents were there were 9 wolves on our farm and they couldn't kill them because they were on that federal endangered list. But in 2007 and 2008, the federal agents killed 25 wolves on one of our farms. So even they brought in donkeys, and we had 2 real good donkeys, and they both disappeared the night of July 27, 2010. And the federal agents, they couldn't find a trace of them. They came from Marquette with the DNR airplane, and